So a friend of mine at work got one of these, and he said, "Hey, Eric, battery's bad." I said, "Hey, give it to me." You push the button on the front, nothing happens. It doesn't even feel like the button pushes. But I'm gonna tear it apart. It's a T15 Torx. What do you call it? Safety Torx. So take it apart and see what's in there. And interestingly enough, the Torx that are in there are the exact same Torx that are on this DeWalt. I just took this DeWalt apart and added 5 more cells in it to make it I put 3 amp hour plus I think it's 2 amp hour, so it's a 5 amp hour cell. So it's got high capacity cells on the bottom, high energy cells on top. And that works okay. Haven't had complaints from anybody. Alright, so I got the force battery terminals out. Trying to take it apart and not destroy anything. Are there any wires under there? I don't know. Trying to pry it up, but it's kind of stuck on the bottom there. It's a flathead. Can I do this one-handed? I'm gonna go not really. Alright, see you in a little bit. Alright, figure out the problem. Little cheeky buggers. Put a sticker on the front. That's confusing me. So now I'm gonna play with this and see what is where. Okay, yeah, now I can push the button at least. Before I didn't feel like I guess I could, but just didn't realize I could. So the bottom, there's that thing. Not sure what this does. Interesting. Wonder if that's a magnet sensor of some sort to take that apart and then quits working, because it is right over this thing. I don't know, we'll find out. Alright, it's a tight fit, but this thing is just placed in there and it's just a squeeze. So I have measured some of the cells and they are DEAD, dead. What is that? They're 2000 amp hour cells. I'm sorry, 2000 milliamp hour cells. Oh, there you go. 3.7 volts. But yeah, they seem to be no bueno. So I'm gonna see if I can do anything with them. So looking at the construction, everything is soldered in place, so I'd have to go and either desolder or cut the terminals, because that's balance lead. I'm going to assume that's a balance lead right there, balance lead there, one over here somewhere. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hook up power to it. So I've got 20 volts at 0.1 amps. I'm just going to see what happens when I put power to it. And absolutely nothing is happening. So now, since the BMS has completely disconnected, we'll just have to hotline it, figure out where the hots are, and then go from there. Wait a minute. Yeah. Let me go. Crank this guy all the way up. No, it's not doing anything. And it's more amps than I wanted to put it in anyway. Okay, well, step 2 is finding out where the hots are and hotlining. Okay, a little bit of playing around. This is your main positive right here. These two and these two ohm out, and the power goes to here, and it zips around, and then it comes out. What does it do? Wait a minute, I might have made a mistake. I gotta think about this again. Because I get 1.8 volts when I go between here and here. And my thought was I could just charge these two and see if that charges it up. But I don't know. I got to do some more research here, because I got to check over here. Maybe do between here and here and see what happens. Let me check that out and see if that's higher voltage, because I was getting 1.8 here. And so yeah, I just welded on a piece of nickel, and then my first one didn't stick, and so I just cranked up my thing. Let me crank this back down so I don't forget, because I'm an idiot. I did it at 3 volts. And let me disconnect my switch, which is an alligator clip, because everything's janky here. Let me check this out now. Okay, so no, all you have to do is spend about a minute looking at the board, and then you'll see B plus and B minus. So there are the positive and negatives, and that right there, this line comes up to the B minus, and so I just welded myself on a little tab right there. So I got attached there for my negative and my positive there. So let's go throw some volts at this thing and see if we can make it get to normal volts. And then there's also a ton of these test points. So you can test point the voltages. So right here is where the volts come up, but then it comes over to here to TCP1, TCP11. You got TCP19. I don't think there's 19 cells in here. So you got TCP17 right there. But yeah, if you measure between those two TCP pads and also just between the cell, it's the same thing. So what I did is I normally have this guy on first just to get the voltage somewhat synced, because if I don't, it'll spark. But I hooked this up first with power off on that, and it was at like 3 volts, and it dropped immediately down to 0 volts because this charges up the capacitors and everything. And as soon as I started putting any power to it, the volts just shot right up. I had it at 0.11 amps, and I've reduced it to 0.08 amps, and it's still climbing quickly. Now the LED still do nothing when I push the button, but it's still at half a volt per cell. So, or it's got 1.7 volts per cell, because it is a 10p. I'm sorry, 10s. So you got one. So you can see. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cells going across, and they're seriesed up. So you have a 10s 3p. So whatever that voltage is, move the decimal place over. So 1.8 volts per cell, still really low. Once it gets to 2.5 volts, I'll crank up the amps and speed it up a little bit, because it'll take forever at 0.08 amps on a 6 amp hour battery. Alright, well, I'm so surprised that this worked, but if you look right here, you can see ground, 3.3 volt, reset, something, 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 something. And so I was looking at these going, okay, well, that looks like where a connector should plug in. And I measured the voltages between ground and all of these, and they're all 3.3 volts. So what I did is I just took a little wire and shorted it between ground and reset. Focus. Yep. Between ground and reset. And then all of a sudden, when you hit the buttons, boom. So this was, I tested this, or I did this last night, I believe. And then, let me get back to zoom 1, sorry. Not 10. Then, actually, let me go back to 0.5. I was right. When I measure the voltages here, so you can see the volts, 40.6 volts. And it was 40.7 volts last night, so I don't know if this BMS just has a little parasitic drain on it to where it's pulling the volts down 0.1 per night or something like that, 0.1 per day. But yeah, it seems like that fixed it, because before, when I would do this, nothing would happen. I would get 0 volts, even though I did have about 3 volts in this when it had no load on it. And like I said, when I hooked up a load to it, it immediately shot down to 0 volts, but it's got no energy in it when it's at half a volt per cell. So yeah, take it apart, charge it up on the mains, and then hit the reset on it, and bing, bang, boom, it works again.